Misérable, mais que je ne dissimule pas plus longtemps. Je vous la chose. Greetings, Poe fans. This is Carmen Bolden.
And Jeanie Smith.
And we are the
Potastic Two.
Welcome back, Poe fans. And we are going to get right into a discussion of poetry, since it is the National Poetry Month, which is April.
Mm-hmm.
And the quote was a French translation of a line from The Telltale Heart by Poe, translated by Charles Baudelaire, and which translates to, "Wretches," I cried, "do not dissemble any longer. I admit it." Thus, Baudelaire admits to translating Poe.
Exactly. And we chose Baudelaire because he's like the very first poet to try to be influenced the most by Edgar Allan Poe. I mean, they were only 12 years difference in their lifespan.
Yes, because he was born April 9th, 1821. So that 19 connection, you know, with the birthday.
Yeah, even different months, but that day, it seems like it's really creepy how the numerology works out sometimes.
Yes, it does. Yes, absolutely.
Yeah. So at least he wasn't assassinated like poor old Lincoln, but okay.
Yeah, exactly. Don't bring those connections in, Jeanie.
What? I'm just saying. I mean, Lincoln and Poe were born on the exact same day, so
I know. Okay. Anyway, well, Baudelaire actually discovered Poe in 1847, 2 years before Poe died. Unfortunately, they never met.
No, that would have been fortunate. I mean, Poe did get to meet Charles Dickens in his lifespan. However, Baudelaire probably would have been a fanboy if he had met Poe.
I agree. Absolutely. Yes, and what's kind of cool is his translating many of Poe's works into French really kind of gave him his income kind of off and on throughout the rest of his life, because he died August 31st, 1867. So
yeah, he wasn't that old either. I mean, it just seems there's a lot of similarities as we were researching through here about their life. However, there was like a coin to the likeness.
Yes.
Whereas like Poe was on one side, Baudelaire was on the other when it came to their families and their, life in itself.
Absolutely.
But there was a whole lot of similarities, even though there were those opposites, which is what we're going to discuss.
Absolutely. Yeah, Baudelaire began his education at the College Royal in 1832, and then he transferred in 1836 to the Lycée Louis le Grand. But the professors, masters there, who were his teachers, saw him as very precocious, and he had moods of melancholy, and he really preferred to be by himself a lot.
That sounds familiar.
Yeah, it does.
I mean, however, Poe was very much an outgoing type person because he did go to college, but he also went to West Point.
Right.
He also went into the military. So it's like he was seeking out a justification or a gratification of some sort from other people because he wasn't getting it at home.
Yeah, and then in 1839, Baudelaire was expelled.
Oh, there's that word again. Expelled.
Yes. So that's kind of sounds of familiarity.
Oh, yes, because Poe was always getting kicked out of somewhere, whether it be a bar, a college.
Or the rumors, maybe.
Rumors,
yes.
Which that's pretty much par for the course back in those days.
Oh, absolutely. And so Baudelaire, he did pass his baccalaureate exams, and so he was able to enroll into as a normal student of law at the École de Droit.
Does that bless you?
Yes.
Say what?
Yes, exactly.
Okay. I didn't study French.
Yes, neither did I. I did Spanish, and so hopefully we are pronouncing these things correctly. And if we're not, we apologize.
Forgive us.
Yes.
Don't give us too much harsh feedback because we're trying.
Oh, yes.
We're trying.
So around that time, Baudelaire really was, I guess, kind of feeling his oats, sowing his oats, whatever you want to say.
Yeah.
And he unfortunately met with a lady of the evening named Sarah La Lanchette, who he did write about in some of his early poems and was referred to as Squint-Eyed Sarah. And he contracted syphilis.
That sounds the familiarity too. I mean, even though Poe wrote about many of his loves and interests and stuff, I don't think he ever actually contracted anything from him, even though he had plenty that had tuberculosis.
Right, exactly.
They kept the STDs close to the vest if he had any.
Exactly.
No pun intended,
and unfortunately, when Baudelaire died in 1867, it was from syphilis.
Which was, I hate to say it, common in those areas, just like tuberculosis, because antibiotics hadn't come around by then, and contagions were everywhere.
Oh, absolutely.
And people were still recovering from the Black Plague, the Red Plague, all the wonderful plagues.
Cholera, the things, yes.
Typhus, all the wonderful, wonderful things of those days.
The 19th century.
Exactly.
So, because his
Would
family...
Would that be the 18th century, though?
Oh,
19th.
No, that'd be 19th. Yeah.
Sorry, I went back a couple centuries there.
You had a moment. It's all right.
What year are we in again? Okay.
We're back. We're not time traveling, Jeanie.
God darn.
All right. And so his stepfather did play a pretty strong role in his life. After his father died, he was how old, Jeanie?
He was 60 when he married his mother, who was 23 at the time.
Right. And Baudelaire was, 6, I think you said?
Yeah, he was 6 when he died. So his father was 66. His mother was 29, I think it was. Don't quote me on that because numbers kind of flew together at that time period.
Right.
But she was very young compared to his father, who was extremely old.
Yes. And so in 1841, his stepfather kind of stepped in because he was like, yes, you're my stepson, but we're not going to have this activity going on. So he sent him on a voyage to India.
Ooh, fun.
Yes.
Hey, I've read that book, Road to India. It's kind of creepy.
All right.
A lot of stuff going on. So I feel for him there, too. Because if he went through half of that stuff. Woo!
And so he returned back to France in 1842. And so what was kind of cool is he brought back with him all of these, kind of things he saw and experienced from exotic areas that he could include in his writing. And so, kind of like Poe did not get to visit some of these exotic places that he wrote about, but Poe still included, especially France, areas of France in his writing.
Which is very interesting since Poe really never lived in France, never really visited France. He had only visited England with...
when they lived there.
Yeah, that's the thing. But that's still... It's not like going to India and living for a few years and then coming back and writing about it.
Right, exactly.
But for some reason...
living the actual life.
Living the life where Poe was just making up the life and thinking he wanted to be French.
Exactly.
Which is kind of strange.
Yeah, and he was fluent in French because he, studied all the traditional,
Which is okay. I mean, that's the thing. But... when you truly think about writing what you know, Poe was not writing what he knew about the French.
No.
Except for just what he had studied and learned from other people.
Exactly. It's really kind of cool because he did it very well.
Yeah, he did.
But Baudelaire received his inheritance about this time frame too.
And that's where it started going downhill.
Oh yes, because then he decided to be a Dorian Gray and have a very hedonistic lifestyle of spending his money almost within 2 years of time on clothes, food, wine, opium, and hashish.
Well, of course. I mean, that's the Playboy lifestyle.
Right.
He was, and I hate to say this, do not come after me, French people, but the French are very open in their romanticism because it's one of the most romantic languages. It's one of the Eiffel Tower, the most romantic places on earth.
Exactly.
So he would fit into that category of being the Playboy.
Yes.
In the French.
Yes. And he met a lady named Jeanne Duval, and she pretty much kind of dominated his life for about 20 years.
Well, that's good. It's better than having the floozy, what was her name, One-Eyed Sarah?
Yes.
No.
But he did write about Jeanne she inspired the work La Chevelure, which means the head of hair, because she had beautiful, flowing, long black hair.
Oh, at least it wasn't Godiva.
Which makes me think of Annabelle Lee.
Yeah. Made me think of Godiva, and then I thought of chocolate, and then I thought of French, and then I thought of chocolate again, and I'm going, wow, now I'm hungry.
Okay. So then in 1844, the family stepped in again and said, you're not going to do this. And so then he became like extremely dependent upon his mother again.
Yes. And the really interesting thing is when he came into his money at 21, that's when he inherited his trust left from his father.
Right.
He was being controlled by a plethora of family members. They were all in charge of the money.
Right.
It wasn't just like one executor. It was like a panel. And they were very strict on him, which would probably cause him to react the way he did and go out and say, I'm going to live my life and it's my money. You can't, take it away from me. And then boom, and that's what happens. So I did read an article where it was estimated that over the next few years, he had ended up, or over the lifetime, he had ended up getting over 20,000 francs from his mother.
Oh, wow.
Because he had went through so much money and almost ran out.
That's a lot of money.
Yeah, and I mean, think about it: booze, women, the party lifestyle, clothes. Yeah, I mean, it can add up.
Yeah,
and especially if you're trying to emulate a lifestyle and be that type of person.
Exactly.
So, he was it.
Yeah, and he did, put a lot into his, poetic work and his translations and things like that. He published probably his greatest work was called The Flowers of Evil, and he published this right after he began translating Poe's work.
Yep, that sounds about right.
Yeah.
Flowers of Evil. I can see that being somewhat influenced by Poe.
And
just
some
the
of
name.
Yeah. Oh, and some of the things I read it kind of indicated that he did this so it would help people understand Poe. To just having those connections together.
Well, and you also have to take in consideration the circles of the educated at that time were very few.
Right.
Because it was mostly just the aristocracy, or that's how
aristocracy.
Thank you.
I thought you were going to say the aristocrats or crats. Sorry, not cats.
I started that too.
Cats always pop in.
Exactly. Cats have to come in where this aristocracy. Thank you. Because I was like aristocracy. I don't think that's right. But anyway,
it's all right.
It's been a while. But anyway, so during that time period, there wasn't a lot of the educated lower masses. So with him stepping in and trying to interpret and trying to get influence from Poe to other people,
right,
says a lot. Because he really identified, which is what Carmen came up with the idea earlier about us calling it, a brother from another mother.
Yes.
And I'm like, it fits perfectly because and she also made this comment too, that he had an Oedipal complex with his mother.
Yes.
Whereas Poe never had that chance.
No.
But all of his female influence mothers, they left him over and over and over again until finally
Maria Clem.
His aunt was his final influence.
But that relationship or that thought process never happened. It was more of she was a true mother figure to him.
Yeah, that's true. And whereas then you have to look at the other end of it. Edgar Allan Poe fell in love with his cousin.
True.
So there is that similarity with
it was more common back then.
Yeah. Well, that's true. First, second cousins were marrying each other a lot, especially in the upper aristocracy.
Oh, absolutely.
And the royalty.
Yes. Let's not get into the Habsburgs.
Sorry. Yeah. No.
Okay.
That's just a little too single tree there. Whoop.
But Baudelaire, kind of tying into this, he really considered Poe as his literary soulmate.
Well, and for good reason, because when I was reading through Baudelaire's stuff, I was going, wow, I'm looking at the actual darkest side of Edgar Allan Poe.
Yes.
Poe got some little woo, but Baudelaire really went there.
Yeah, he definitely did. And some of his poetry was banned because of it.
For a good reason. Because I was like, okay.
Yeah. But Baudelaire loved Poe so much, like I said, literary soulmate, his brother in poetry, that, he was an art critic, but he never critiqued Poe because he felt like that, with them, this being his brother in poetry, that would truly not honor the man.
Right.
It was not necessary to do that because he felt like they were almost the same person.
Yeah, and on one aspect of that, too, he may not want to critique Poe because it would get a little too close to home on his own criticism of his own work.
Very, very true. And he was translating Poe, and it's like if Poe before Poe died, if he had critiqued Poe before Poe's death, then, we know Poe was the tomahawk, so he probably would have been critiquing him.
Oh yeah, because Poe would not have held back.
No, not
That's
at all.
why he was hated in the world of literature.
Exactly. So we're going to take a minute and read some of Baudelaire's poetry and also Poe's, because we are again celebrating National Poetry Month.
Yep, with two of the influential poets
of the 19th century.
Yeah, Baudelaire, he's considered the influencer of Victor Hugo.
Yes, absolutely.
So, it translates down.
I think what I'm about to read, some versions that I found, it said to Victor Hugo, which I thought was interesting.
Yeah. So you go first. Take it away.
All right. So this is considered Baudelaire's masterpiece, and it is called The Swan, and I am going to read it in English.
Oh, okay. Because I was like, I'm not translating it.
Andromache, I think of you, the stream, the poor sad mirror, where in bygone days shone all the majesty of your widowed grief. The lying Semoy, flooded by your tears, made all my fertile memory blossom forth as I passed by the new-built carousel. Old Paris is no more. A town, alas, changes more quickly than man's heart may change. Yet in my mind I still can see the booths, the heaps of brick and rough-hewn capitals, the grass, the stones all over green with moss, the debris and the square-set heaps of tiles. There a menagerie was once outspread, and there I saw one morning at the hour when toil awakes beneath the cold clear sky and the road roars upon the silent air, a swan who had escaped his cage and walked on the dry pavement with his webby feet, and trailed his spotless plumage on the ground, and near a waterless stream the piteous swan opened his beak, and bathing in the dust his nervous wings, he cried, his heart the while filled with a vision of his own fair lake. O water, when then wilt thou come in rain? Lightning, when wilt thou glitter? Sometimes yet I see the hapless bird, strange fatal myth, like him that Ovid writes of, lifting up unto the cruelly blue ironic heavens, with stretched convulsive neck a thirsty face, as though he sent reproaches up to God. That's part one.
Oh, cool.
I think that's beautiful.
Yeah, and it fits so well because Poe, you can hear the Poe little nuances in there. First of all, it's got a bird.
Yes, and we're going to talk about that in a minute.
Yeah, it's got the religious type factor starting. Yes. So that also ties in with Poe.
Yeah.
So it's a very good start, and Baudelaire was definitely a very good poet.
Absolutely. All right, and so this is part two.
Cool.
Paris may change, my melancholy is fixed. New palaces and scaffoldings and blocks, and suburbs old are symbols all to me, whose memories are as heavy as a stone. And so, before the Louvre, to vex my soul, the image came of my majestic swan, with his mad gestures, foolish and sublime, as of an exile whom one great desire gnaws with no truce. And then I thought of you, Andromache, torn from your hero's arms, beneath the hand of Pyrrhus in his pride, bent o'er an empty tomb in ecstasy, widow of Hector, wife of Helenus, and of the negress wan and physical, tramping the mud and with her haggard eyes, seeking beyond the mighty walls of fog, the absent palm trees of proud Africa, of all who though lose that which they never find, of all who drink of tears, all whom grey grief gives suck to us, the kindly wolf gave suck, of meagre orphans who like blossoms fade, and one old memory like a crying horn sounds through the forest where my soul is lost. I think of sailors on some isle forgotten, of captives vanquished, and of many more.
Very cool. Now, you brought up Africa, and the first thing that popped into my head was James Conrad's book,
Heart of Darkness.
Heart of Darkness. Mm-hmm. Yeah. Not many people liked that book, and for good reason. I mean, it has nothing to do with the writing. It was just the horrors of what he was talking about in the book. But it really struck by what he was saying in that poem with that time.
Oh, absolutely.
And the colonization, all of that wonderful stuff going on.
Exactly. And then, just thinking of taking some of his experiences from India, like you mentioned, colonization and things like that.
Yeah, and the British influence and all that. So, yeah, it fits very well.
It does. And again, just with Paris, Murders in the Rue Morgue, just all the Poe ties to it. All right, so I'm also going to read one of Poe's poems, and we tried to find some that are not necessarily ones that are popular and, share some things that Poe wrote that, to get people out there to see how diverse he was.
Yeah.
So this one he published in 1840, and it's called Sonnet-Silence. There are some qualities, some incorporate things that have a double life which thus is made, a type of that twin entity which springs from matter and light, evinced in solid and shade. There is a two-folded silence, sea and shore, body and soul. One dwells in lonely places, newly with grass o'ergrown, some solemn graces. Some human memories and tearful lore render him terrorless, his name's no more. He is the corporate silence, dread him not. No power hath he of evil in himself. But should some urgent fate, untimely lot, bring thee to meet his shadow, nameless elf, that haunteth the lone regions where hath trod no foot of man, commend thyself to God.
Yep. That is very much the Poe giving us the sound of silence. I'm sorry, the Simon and Garfunkel song popped into my head, the sound of silence.
Absolutely.
So I'm thinking, I wonder if it was influenced by Poe.
Well, and just some of the things that, the first part one of the Swan ends with, as though he sent reproaches up to God. This poem ends with, commend thyself to God. Just again.
Yeah, those religious ties between what Poe, and I don't even think Poe would actually be considered a religious man in some aspects. Right. And after reading some of Baudelaire's stuff, I don't think him very religious, because some of the stuff like you talked about that was banned. Right.
Now, he did consider himself Roman Catholic. Baudelaire did.
Well, of course, because it was French. But yeah, one of the poems that I read of Baudelaire called Litany of Satan, and I went,
Yeah.
Yeah. It's very, it's a very good.
Yes. Okay. Again, he pushed the limit. He pushed the line.
Oh, very much so, especially with the Catholic Church, I guarantee you.
Yes. But I thought it was very interesting, because Poe wrote this one, and it mentions the twin entity. But it made me, because we're doing this for, to show the influence of Poe on Baudelaire. Just Baudelaire felt like they were a twin entity. So I just thought that was kind of interesting.
Yeah, the commonality is definitely there,
Oh, yeah.
A poet by another poet mother.
Yes.
So that's going to lead you into my choice for Baudelaire, which was The Albatross, which once more we have the bird influence there. So it was also one of his rather popular poems. And I'm going to actually be reading the translation of this by William Agler. So here we go. The Albatross. Often, to amuse themselves, the men of a crew catch albatrosses, those vast seabirds that indolently follow a ship as it glides over the deep, briny sea. Scarcely have they placed them on the deck than these kings of the sky, clumsy, ashamed, pathetically let their great white wings drag beside them like oars. That winged voyager, how weak and gauche he is, so beautiful before, now comic and ugly. One man worries his beak with a stubby clay pipe, another limps, mimics the cripple who once flew. The poet resembles this prince of cloud and sky, who frequents the tempest and laughs at the bowman. When exiled on the earth, the butt of hoots and jeers, his giant wings prevent him from walking. And I read this one and thought, oh my goodness, he's talking about himself in Poe to an extent I have never heard before.
Oh, exactly. And again, Poe has the raven.
Yes.
Baudelaire has the swan, the albatross. Mm-hmm. It's like all the birds are flying overhead.
Yeah, and the albatross is very much it's considered a curse in yeoman's terms now, because
in the mariner culture. Yes.
Yeah, if you catch an albatross, then it's going to curse you for good reason, because they were the spirits of the sky.
Right.
So it's like he was saying, hey, you try to hold us down, you try to clip our wings, it's not going to end well.
Yeah.
Because it's not going to stop us. We may be clumsy, we may not feel as we once were, but we would not stop.
Exactly, yeah.
So that's going to lead me into Poe's 1831 poem, The City and the Sea. Lo, death has reared himself a throne in a strange city lying alone, far down within the dim west, where the good and the bad and the worst and the best have gone to their eternal rest. These shrines and palaces and towers, time-eaten towers that tremble not, resemble nothing that is ours. Around by lifting winds forgot, resignedly beneath the sky the melancholy waters lie. No rays from the holy heaven come down on the long night time of that town, but light from out of the lurid sea streams up the turrets silently, gleams up the pinnacles far and free, up domes, up spires, up kingly halls, up fanes, up Babylon like walls, up shadowy long forgotten bowers of sculpted ivy and stone flowers, up many and many a marvelous shrine, whose wreathed friets intertwine the voile, the violet, and the vine. Resignedly beneath the sky the melancholy waters lie. So blend the turrets and the shadows there, that all seem pendulous in air, while from a proud tower in the town death looks gigantically down. Their open fames and gaping graves yawn level with the luminous waves, but not the riches there that lie in each idol's diamond eye, not the gaily jeweled dead tempt the waters from their bed. For no ripples, and alas, along that wilderness of glass, no swellings tell that winds may be upon some far-off happier sea, no heavings hint that winds have been on sea less hideously serene. But lo, a stir in the air, the wave, there is a movement there, as if the towers had thrust aside, and slightly sinking the dull tide, as is their tops had freshly given a void within the filmy heaven. The waves had now a redder glow, the hours are breathing faint and low, and when amid no earthly moans, down, down that town shall settle hence, hell rising from 1,000 thrones shall do it reverence.
Very nice.
Thank you, thank you. The City and the Sea. And of course, I think he wrote that talking about Atlantis. Because, I mean, to me, that everything, reading all of it, and plus all the histories.
The connections, yeah.
Yeah, and thinking about that, and thinking about the poor albatross, and how, the sea is a bitter mistress for many people.
Yes.
Whether it be a town that's fallen into the sea, or the wonderful men who've lost their lives traveling it.
Oh, yeah. And Poe used the sea in many things.
Mm-hmm. Very much so. I mean, it was definitely a very popular theme in those days, along with, religion.
Yes.
By far.
Oh, absolutely.
So, because there's a lot of colonization going on at that time.
Mm-hmm.
So.
Oh, yeah.
But,
well,
yeah.
That is Baudelaire, all wrapped up in a neat little package of
poetry.
Yes.
Yeah, with Poe.
Yes.
Because it was poet like Poe.
Exactly. And speaking of poet like Poe, we will be sending out our newsletter
later tomorrow.
Yes.
So.
And we are going to start a poetry contest each year. This will be our first annual one, and it's called Poet Like Poe.
Very much so. And you can find all the information, if you're not signed up for our newsletter, on our webpage.
Yes.
You'll have all the deets, all the good stuff, all the guidelines and the prizes, which are always good.
Yes, we have guest judges, and we have an adult category and a youth category as well. So please, 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 poet like Poe, and submit your poetry to us.
Yes, and the guidelines are fairly simple. And if you like it, just send it to us, and we'll see what we can do.
Yes, and the submissions will open tomorrow, April 16th, and they will close down the very end of May.
Yep, May the 28th.
Yes. So that's one of our big things that we're launching for National Poetry Month. Don't forget, we are also on Facebook, on Twitter. We have our YouTube channel called Poe Unplugged.
Yes, where we will actually be posting one of our live events coming tomorrow.
Yes, and it's a surprise, and it is also to help promote an event that we are going to be present at as a vendor called Halfway to Halloween on May 6th in Manchester, Tennessee.
Yeah, so anyone in the Middle Tennessee area, please feel free to come by and check us out.
Yes, and it's a free event.
Yeah, it's very free. It's going to have a lot of cool monsters, and like we said, the surprise guest, you're just going to have to wait and see.
Yes, and we will be launching that tomorrow as well.
Exactly. So please stay tuned and let us know what you think anytime, anyway, any play.
Yes. So follow us, like us, subscribe, and also check out our Patreon. We have lots of tiers and lots of goodies to share with you.
Yes. So it's been a pleasure for those of you we've gotten to meet and those that we talked to, whether by email or in person. So we'd love to have more.
Yes. And just shout out to, we just finished the Telltale Steampunk Festival.
Yes.
The first weekend of April, and it was an amazing event. We really enjoyed it, and just thank the sponsors and the
friends that we met, because we did a live with Beyond the Oblong Box, our friends Virginia Poe and Levi Leland.
Yes.
Which go check them out too.
Exactly. We have all the Poe friends in the Poe community.
Exactly, because we Poe people.
That's right. So for now, we are Poe out.
Always be a poet, even in prose.